Peace and guidance to whoever that may be watching this video. Today we are going to be looking at the cube of space, which is the secret behind the matrix of existence. Now, the cube of space is pretty much a concept or symbolical representation of the principle that manifested all of existence, the great mystery, the Most High, God, the creator, the source of all that is, whatever you want to call that, which is truly nameless and inexplicable and limitless. But this symbolical representation and concept derives from the teachings of the Kabbalah, the esoteric teachings of mystical Judaism, and various other ancient traditions. Now, today we are going to explore, very briefly into, the concept of it, and how pretty much this cube of space, how it manifests everything in creation by way of God's word, quote unquote, And we are also going to be looking at the holy name that, the Jews call Yahweh, and the various other mystical, Kabbalists, where the name is embedded inside the cube to pretty much delineate how God, or the creator, manifests all creation by way of infinite light into physical material, as well as, spiritual reality. So let's pretty much examine very briefly into it by way of this little synopsis that I wrote about the cube about 5 or 6 years ago. And it reads like this. Kabbalah, or Kabbalah, conveys that God's sacred shape is the cube, because the cube is the emanation of all dimensions which gave birth to mobility. Kabba meaning cube, Allah meaning God. The square has 4 sides. Yahweh, the tetragrammaton, which is spelled YHWH, has 4 letters. Yahweh, the creator God, created the universe with the word, or sound. Pay close attention here. The cube, which is the multidimensional square, delineates duality and parallel dimensions marvelously. The cube has 6 faces. It has an axis in its center which establishes the hermetic axiom, as above, so below. There are 4 directions in the cube, just like a compass. Those directions are north, south, east, and west. Now, let's observe this diagram that we have right here. Pretty much, just as I was explaining years ago in this old Facebook post of mine, that pretty much, gave an overall basis of the concept of the cube. I was basically, pretty much elaborating on how whenever you look at whichever, face of the square, it pretty much inverts. So, take for instance, if we highlight this square here, like this, we can consider this to be the face of the cube, meaning the outside, the interior, and the lining, these dotted lines that we see inside of the cube. This can be looked at from our perspective as if it is the inside of the cube, while the red is highlighting the face of the cube, hiding, that which is, pretty much inside, like so. But it also inverts. You see, we can highlight this side. I know that's not the most perfect line in the world, but bear with me. I'm using my finger to draw this. Now, this can be seen as the anterior or the facade of the cube, the singular face on this side. Now the cube appears to be now from our perspective, it looks as though the cube is like we're looking at it from beneath, where this is the bottom, you see, and this is the face, and this is the side. See how the cube just magically inverts by way of our perception, delineating perfectly how duality, is truly synonymous and not necessarily separate. You see, this is how the dimensions unfold within themselves by way of the cube of space. Now let's move on to this example. where we see that we have indications of the directions within the cube. This is west, this is east, this is south, and this is north. And then there's below and there's above, and as well as the center here in the cube. And of course they have, various other Hebrew alphabetic letters and everything that's representing other, occult meaning, but we're not going to get into all that right now. We're just going to focus on the basic concept of this introductory video into the cube of space, because this topic in itself can get pretty extensively deep, but to me personally it's just truly unnecessary, because it's just it's just digging into more concepts, and but these concepts do help elucidate one in understanding primordial origin, as well as the manifest reality in which we dwell, as well as the just the overall principle that manifested all things, which is the great mystery, or that which we all refer to as God. Because the universe is not the truth or the mystery itself, it is the infinite light manifested and reflected. You see, this infinite light that is the universe manifested is reflecting a principle that we can't perceive with our sensory perception nor our spiritual sight. You see, because it's truly beyond all human intellect and sensory perception. We can only theorize about it by way like we're doing now, as well as, through concepts and various symbols like we see before us. So this is just another, example I just wanted to let you guys, or whoever that's watching this, see, pretty much to help you understand the concept of the cube of space. Now, this is another, depiction of a multidimensional cube. Here we have a cube inside of a cube. This is, this is pretty much attempting to delineate four-dimensional space, and here we can look at it from all sorts of different ways. Like the cube, pretty much like this can be the front of the cube. You get the basic idea. We just went over it in the other, two examples. But yeah, this could be the face of it. You know what I'm saying? It's just so many ways with this. But yeah, let's move on to the next. Now this is Mecca, with a bunch of various religious devotees are worshiping the black stone that is in Mecca, and that in itself is another entire topic, so I'm not going to go into that. I only put this example here to show reference and the connection to the cube of space and the esoteric teachings behind the monotheistic religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They're all connected. They're not separate. They come from the same ancient mystery schools. They're just taught differently and by way of different culture and languages. But yes, here we have Hebrew reads from right to left. This is Yud. This is how Yah, the Y, is pronounced. And this is He. This is Va. And this is the other He. Now, this name bears symbolical importance, because in our next example, the name is actually like the actual Hebrew letters, and the name is spelled out for, God, or the name that can't be uttered, is actually what in Jewish mysticism and the Kabbalah and various other ancient, mystery schools of thought, they teach that this is the Adam Quadman, which is man perfectly reflecting the image of God. This is what in the Bible they talk about, we were made in the image of God. Like, this is what they're talking about here. This symbology, you see, as well as the actuality that we encompass in all of creation. You see, like, all worlds, all elements are embedded in us. We have direct link to the other worlds, and we can travel there via our consciousness and astral projection and so on and so forth. That makes us a very unique part of creation, a unique organism, a unique creature in creation, because the creatures or the beings in other realms and other worlds are totally binded to their own. Unless we summon them here, you see, So we have dominion not only over the animal kingdom, but we have dominion over the spiritual, astral kingdoms and planes of existence. You see, that's our connection to the divinity. We perfectly reflect the great mystery, which is what we call God or the creator or the source. That which is, whatever you want to, whatever limiting name you want to call it. But yes, this is Yud, He, Va. This is Va, He. You see, this looks like a little person, it looks like a man standing on his 2 feet, This is Adam, the perfect man. You see, Adam as an atom. You see, the primordial being, the primordial human being. You see, now let's get over here into the symbology of the pretty much the meaning behind the symbology. Now, Yud is there are actually 4 worlds of the Kabbalah, and here are little different pretty much diagrams of the Kabbalah tree of life pertaining to each element and each different world that the elements are pretty much comprised amongst the tree of life. Now, Yud, which is the absolute, is the archetypal world. This world pretty much is up here in these 3 Sephiroth. The spears on the tree of life are called the Sephiroth. For those of you who don't know and are not familiar with Kabbalah teachings, but the spears are the Sephiroth, and the 3 up here, this is Keter, this is Binah, this is Chokmah. This is the crown, this is understanding, and this is wisdom. You see, this is the archetypal world wherein ideas come into being. This is where pretty much where this is pretty much the origin of formations, basically. This predates life force energy. You see, this is where all potentiality exists, and from potentiality comes Bria, the creative. And Bria is pretty much these 3 Lord Sephiroth underneath the first set of the 3. You see, this is the world of Bria, the creative, which is the ideas beginning to have life force energy, which is the creative spark of life. You see, this is where ideas begin to have energy to be presented in, what's next, Yetzirah, the formative world, which are these 3 Lord Sephiroth. And these 3 Lord Sephiroth are indicative of the astral plane, the astral realm. You see, and the astral realm is connected or tethered to our imagination. This is how we lucid dream and astral project. We are literally walking around inside of our own imagination, which is really a lower world a lower spiritual world. You see, of the mental plane. You see, and from this world is where our ideas and everything becomes more palpable. This is where we can pretty much formulate our ideas and manifest things, because now the idea is no longer a disembodied substance, but it now is a form in an immaterial matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an immaterial matter. I know it's kind of like a oxymoron, but let's just say it's an immaterial fact. We perceive our ideas in our imagination, you see, and therefore from that we can create these ideas into the very last world, which is I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Actually, it might be Asiya or Asia, but I'll just say Asiya, which is the manifest world wherein we dwell, which is Earth. You see, this is where from all the higher three worlds derive pretty much all things, all creative thing, all thought forms, everything. Like, every formation that is intangible then becomes tangible and palpable and made malleable in the lesser higher worlds. And then they trickle down into Earth, into the physical universe, which is Malkut. This Sephirotic spear here is called Malkut. You see, that's Earth, the kingdom, Keter in its fully manifested form. That is what that is. So let's move on to the next example. Okay, see, we have another pretty much another representation of the atom quadman, but this time this is Shin. This Hebrew alphabet. I mean, oh my God, this Hebrew letter is called Shin. It's pronounced Shin. Which is a fire principle. It kind of looks like fire. And that is pretty much another topic in itself. But basically, it pretty much represents another aspect of the atom quadman. So we won't go into that because again, it's just more and more, pretty much to teach. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I might create a part 2 to this, might make it into a series if those of you are interested, if it gets good feedback. If not, then cool, we just gonna keep it rocking. But this is pretty much to answer my boy Monraj, what I'm saying, question about this whole thing, because he pretty much been pondering the whole tetragrammaton and the name, the unspeakable name, what I'm saying, for a minute. And it's a lot more to it. I got a lot more gems on it, but I really just wish to stick with the more practical knowledge. But this conceptual knowledge here, this symbolical knowledge here, definitely does help elucidate and bring forth a great spiritual insight into the actual ontology of things. So yeah, with that being said, like, share, and subscribe. What I'm saying? Comment on this video. Help that shit go up. Make the visibility on this channel go up so we can keep growing out here. What I'm saying? And you know what I mean? Just keep on rocking. So, what I'm saying? Join the school. If you're not in the school on Facebook, School of Insight. What I'm saying? It's like a community. And school etymologically means place of lecture, a place of congregation for those who come to share knowledge and information. So that's directly what that is. What I'm saying? It's not nobody trying to put themselves on a pedestal or anything. It's everybody coming there to share and drop gems and help teach each other, and then therefore we all can have an enhanced quality of life because we have an enhanced quality of insight, which is true wisdom and knowledge that we then operate and take action on, which then brings forth a higher quality life. You know what I'm saying? Knowledge without action is nothing. So what I'm saying? Whenever you learn something, put it to use, put it to practice, test it out, experiment with it, be a true scientist, be a true alchemist. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so pretty much this concludes everything. Peace and guidance. I'm out.